Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So back again. I'm Mara, and if you're new to my channel, I do sewing projects like transforming old clothes into new ones. By the way, this is where I edit my videos because it's so relaxing while laying here in my hammock.
Don't leave me, babe. Don't leave me. Yeah.
No! 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 No!
No, don't leave me. Don't leave
Me! So without further ado, let the tutorial begin. Now for the measurement, just measure your under bust and go down to your waistline and measure your waistline. Then from your waistline, go down to your hip line and measure your hip line. And that's it. That's all for the measurements. Now for drafting the pattern, I draw a vertical line for the center front and draw a horizontal line for my under bust line. Now from the under bust line, go down to the measurement of your under bust to the hip line and draw a straight line. Then I mark the quarter of my under bust. And then I add the waistline and mark the quarter of my waistline. And also the quarter of my hip line. Then I just connect them all together. So right now I'm just shaping out the pattern of the corset that I want to be look like. I'm just playing around of the curves until I'm satisfied of the pattern that I want to be. And when you're satisfied to your pattern, cut the original pattern and use it to trace for the back piece. Right now, I'm placing the front piece pattern to the back piece and mark the end of the sides of the front piece. And I also add a little curve in the top and the bottom of the back piece. And this is the final pattern that I made for the corset. Moving on, I'm using this lace tank top for the corset and just cut the patterns. Then I cut the front piece on fold and added a seam allowance in the sides. Right now, I laid them together and decided to add more curve in the top. And sew them together with this straight stitch. Then I use this black trouser to create a bias for the channel of the boning. Then I'm drawing a straight line as a guide to where I place my bonings. Then I add a one layer of fabric in the center back because grommets like to hold a thicker fabric. Then I made a channel like this one by top stitching it. Fold it inside and it should look like this, and top stitch it. Top stitch it again here. So while I'm sewing, I didn't notice that this is much wider than this, so I don't want to seam rip it because it takes too long. And it's really hard to seam rip with the lace. So now I'm just going to trim the excess fabric. Then I hem the raw edges by sewing the bias in it. Then place the strip in the wrong side and sew it with a straight stitch. Then clip the curved edges so it stays flat when I top stitch it. Then I double fold the strip and place it in the right side of the fabric, pin it and top stitch it. So that is the worst thing that happens to me when I backstitch a thick layer of fabric, because the needle just bends. If you can see, it bends. The needle bends when I backstitch a thick layer of fabric. So what I do is I use the hand wheel. Manually. Just a little tip when you sew, when you're doing a backstitch, especially when you have a multiple layer of fabric, just use the hand wheel to backstitch the fabric so the needle won't bend or break. So I've changed the needle already, and let's proceed again in sewing. So after sewing the bias, this is what it looks like, nice and clean. And you should sew it, and you should sew it just close enough in the end of the fabric so it looks nice and clean. And now time for adding the boning. I'm using a zip tie because I'm not that rich to purchase a metal boning, but if you have a metal boning you could use that. It's better. Trim the end of the zip tie with a curve so it won't pierce the fabric. Coffee. And time for the coffee break. After adding the boning, hem the bottom of the corset with a bias. Finally, adding the grommets, and I'm done.
Naya,